Hey guys, we're going to try to ride the pop culture wave of the three-body problem. Came out, years and years ago, the book. Netflix has a show now. China has a show. And the background is, a couple of weeks ago, I binged through all three books in like 5 days. And then you read the first book, and then we watched the Netflix show.
I think there's a problem. See, I read the three booty problem.
Oh.
It's also a show on Netflix, but it does have implications of a galactic nature, if you know what I mean.
This isn't working. So stupid.
Okay, whatever. Let's just talk about it.
Yeah. Well, broad thoughts. Book good, show not as good.
Okay, so I like the book quite a bit, actually. The show, I would say I really didn't like it for the first part especially, and then it kind of got a little bit better at the end, I feel, of the first season. I feel like it was like D- territory, and then it went to summer school, put in the effort, and really worked itself up to like a C- or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't find it very compelling. Well, what did you think?
The book, I have issues with it, but you can nitpick anything. But from like an ideas perspective, I really liked it, and I'd recommend it to my friends. It has issues, but
there were very interesting things in the book. Yeah, like you said, very interesting ideas. Like, it explores the vast distances of space and like how fighting another alien empire would actually be like, a 500-year process at best or whatever, The proton folding, the multiple dimension, the Sophon thing. These are all cool ideas. They probably don't work in real life, right?
They probably don't work exactly like that, but it's still stuff that I haven't thought about, and
Do you
it
think
made me want to delve deeper.
It's kind of like I don't know anything about the author really, but it's like theoretical physicist fan fiction, in the sense that like they are the main characters, they're solving the problem, and like the world seems to revolve around theoretical physics. Like the aliens' ultimate plan to disrupt human development is to screw up the Large Hadron Collider. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so you've only read the first book, so
true.
We can. Well, we'll talk about the books later, I guess. But I do agree. I think you talked about Project Hail Mary, like 26 years ago now?
Yeah.
And we mentioned how that was a similar thing where physics was like the weapon to propel everything forward. And I remember thinking even back then, what would have been fun to see is the implications of that war back on Earth. And so what these books sort of do for me is they explore more of that human life on Earth aspect.
A lot of the book is like an exploration of, he says the principle or the theory, I don't remember what, but like the discovery of aliens triggers like all these events regardless of what our relationship with the aliens is. Like if we find aliens, it doesn't even matter like what they're like or what their plan is. It's going to cause X, Y, and Z to happen. Like some people worship them, some people want to fight them, some people want to run. It's going to cause like societal problems and division no matter what, like regardless. Because that kind of the cool thing is like they're not going to be there for like 400 years.
Yeah.
And like it's still causing all these problems. Like really you could live your whole life and like just
zone out,
not even notice, I guess, because you'd be dead very clearly. But so it kind of explores that, which is interesting.
And then one of the problems I had with the book is that everything is so large scale and everything's sort of a monolith. And so this goes to a lot of things, society, characters in that book, but society behaves sort of one way. Like there's a predominant way. Maybe they mentioned that, some people do this, some people do that, but there's very large sort of like people either do this, or this.
Yeah, I'm not sure if again, I've only read the first book, so I don't know if this changes, but I feel like when you're dealing at that scale, like it just has to be that way.
And I don't blame him, right? He's one person writing this book, so I think he can take those liberties because that's not really why he's writing it exactly, right? He's not writing it to write character drama. He's writing to explore these ideas.
Yeah,
so one person writing a book, I can forgive a lot of those things. But then the show, I think my criticisms come from the fact that they didn't utilize, all the resources that they had to make.
Like the first part was pretty rough for me.
I don't know if they had like a mandate that the first episode has to have all these things included because it really slowed down after like episode 4.
Okay, like let's just get into the show. So like it just felt like they dumbed it down. Like they stuck to it, but like I guess like the way it was expressed, like the things were expressed was kind of like okay, like the countdown, right? Like the countdown in the eyes, okay? You know what I mean?
Just
Weird.
to kind of, I guess, add the context, this is Wang Miao. He's like the main character of
Oh, yeah.
the book. And basically, like, I felt dread. Like, I was reading this in my bed, like, ooh, I'm scared. Because, this guy's like taking a photo, and then out of nowhere, he just sees these numbers on the photograph, and they're counting down. And it's like, it's not connected to anything. And then as someone who's reading it, you think, oh, maybe it could be this, it could be this, it could be this. And then you see the character sort of go through the same motions and prove that it's not caused by, this technology or this technology. And then that sort of unknown creeps in, and that's sort of where the tension comes from. And in the books, he goes around, and there's a whole scene where he sees if it's just that camera. He has analog cameras, digital cameras. He has other people take photos. He takes photos of different subjects.
Very scientifically, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's what I like about the book, and it's like contrasted to the movie. So it's like, or the show. So like in the book, I feel like just like in real life, someone like that happens to you. It's really freaky, and maybe, you're really freaked out by it, but you're not like screaming or like running around or like, like you're kind of like, huh. I like how he goes to the eye doctor.
Yeah,
like, it's a very logical thing to do, Mm-hmm. The other thing that's cool about it is that, like, it's a science fiction book, kind of like a harder science fiction book. So this is like a weird supernatural thing, but because it's a science fiction book, that there's like a logical explanation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not magic.
Right.
But that somehow makes it like more terrifying.
Right. Like if I saw like a countdown in Arial font or like Times New Roman just in front of my field of view, that's horrifying. Whereas in the show, they have this like weird, scary font and this like scary music that plays every time it shows up. Like, you don't need that. Like, that's not the scary thing. The font is not scary.
It's like
it's the thing. It's the idea of a countdown just randomly being in your vision.
Yeah, like the font looks disheveled. You know what I mean? Like the font looks like it's on drugs or something. Uh-huh. It's like that. You have to pull up a comparison, but it's like that you wouldn't download a car font. You know what I'm talking about? That's
well, sort of. It's like the Ring, maybe, but
I don't know.
Yeah, the font is not the scary part.
That's what I mean. Like, it's kind of immature feeling. Like, they kind of felt like they had to. I find it like a repeated problem where like they won't let the story deliver like the drama or like that it does by itself. Like, they feel like they have to like amp it up or something.
I think one of the comparisons I sort of have is if you have like a nice wine, you drink the wine, maybe on a special occasion. You don't like use it to cook.
Yeah.
You don't toss it in and like let it just simmer. You wait. And so there's only so many good stories, like good trident or stories that people like, IPs that people actually care about. And this feels like the show is just one of those kind of by the numbers, just like, oh, toss it in, just get some bingeable content, put it out.
I'm trying to remember back because we watched like all of it in a row almost, and so my brain is mushed a little bit. But I feel like this was especially bad in the first few episodes. Like, they kind of sped things up or jammed things in there, and they almost kind of like glossed over things like that should have been big moments. Like, I feel like if I hadn't read the book, I would almost maybe not understand what's happening. Even like the message to the aliens and like her response, which is like the hugest part of the first book, probably. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like it's almost like if you're not really paying attention, you're not gonna really 100% know what's going on, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, they don't really like take that and play it up for like the thing that it is,
Yeah.
It also comes very early. Like, they didn't follow the structure of the book where it like comes in the middle like a reveal, Mm-hmm. It's like they get it. It's like episode 2 or something. It's like very fast.
Yeah.
And they kind of like speed through all that stuff. And then like everything with her in the past, Wenjie.
Wenjie.
You're gonna have to forgive my pronunciation on all of this, but
if you look at the book, the first book, the most important character by far is Wenjie. In the entire series, she's the catalyst for the entire series. And I think one of the most important things that you should have explored in the first season is what causes a person to basically go against all of humanity. Like, what life have they lived? Like, what is their thought process to where they say, it's better if we just get conquered, like all of us. That's a humongous thing that this character is willing to do that. And in the book, you understand how much she went through. And her character actually has, a little bit of an arc where she goes through this horrific thing with her father. You explore the background of that. and she, there's multiple people in her life who she kind of sort of trusts, but then they kind of break her trust. She goes through, some conflict in her mind, like, did I do the right thing? Whatever. And when she actually does it, you understand, oh my goodness, like, I understand what drove her to this, but this is still insane. Whereas in the show, one, it's not shown to be the insane thing that it is. But then two, it happens really early and it's not given enough time.
Like, they open it the same with, like, the Red Guard. I don't know what you called it.
They're called struggle sessions.
Like where they killed their father or whatever. But that's what I mean. Like, they punched up. They make it more, like, dramatic. Like, she's, like, there and they're, like, holding her down. She's, like, crying and stuff like that. And, like, her dad's up there. But, like, in the book, it's, like, more effective because she's, like, she can't make any noise or else they're going to, like, come after her too. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so she's just there watching, and she can't do anything about it. And it's much more effective in the book. And the other thing that probably someone could say is that, like, in this show, they actually made it, like, worse. Like, she got screwed over more times because, like, the dude that she actually ends up marrying in the book didn't screw her over. Like, remember he in the show he, like, takes her idea, whatever, and, like, as his own. That didn't happen. They just added that on there.
Right.
So it's like she actually gets screwed over more times in the show, but, like, it's less effective. I'm not exactly sure why. I think it's like,
well, you don't really understand the background, I think, as well.
They, like, get into, like, the chopping down the forest, and, like, Mike Evans of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is there. I feel like it just goes through this stuff so fast. I feel like watching the show, it wouldn't make sense that she does this, or if it made sense, it would feel more like petty. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, she's just mad at everybody, which, you should be, but in the book, it's more like
she doesn't feel like there is
the
hope
right
for,
thing to do.
Right. There's no, like,
like,
hope for humanity.
Yeah, it's truly hopeless. And then the big thing with the Red Guard, it's totally different in the book. It makes much more sense. So in the show, she goes to see the
person in the Red Guard who killed Wenjie's father.
She was 14 when she killed her father. Now she's, like, 16. Her arm got blown off, which is sad, and she's in some sort of weird labor camp. I don't know, which is also sad. But it's like, it's not that long later. In the book, it's like much later, and she sees them all when they're grown up, and they, like, kind of explain to her, like, she's mad at them for obvious reasons, but they're like, we're totally screwed over by this system. We have no future. We have nothing. Like, we're nobodies. It's much more devastating and impactful because it's been so long. Like, the kid is, like, 16. It's like, I've got no future. It's like, you can do whatever you want, maybe. But, like, the other one, it's like life has gone by for them. And, like, they're truly, like,
they didn't really.
It's nothing. Like, the cultural revolution that they took part in is, like swept aside now. And, like,
they're not treated as some heroes.
Yeah. Like, they really suffered a lot too, And that's kind of like maybe kind of a turning point. That is all lost and shoved in, like, the first 2 episodes. Is what I'm saying.
And it's so, she's just another character in the show. She's just someone.
That's one thing. The other thing is it's kind of dumb. Parts that are kind of dumb, like the countdown or whatever. They change the cosmic background radiation.
Oh man! All right, so let's just start talking about the show from the beginning, I suppose.
If you remember,
they put everything in that first episode, basically.
Okay, dude, like,
dumb, maybe for people, yeah. Okay, so let me lay some groundwork in case somebody doesn't watch the show. Basically, in the 60s, there was a giant radar dish, and Wenjie sent a message to aliens and told them, hey, invade us, we're basically irredeemable. And those aliens heard the message, and, they're going to come to Earth. It's going to take them 400 years. And then in the meantime, they're like, hey, we don't want you humans to advance, so that you could beat us. So we're going to go ahead and stop your science through, our scientific attack. So that's sort of the entire series. And so we follow these scientists, basically, who are getting threatened or killed or, made to stop working on their breakthrough discoveries. So the first episode I have here, the opening theme is a lot like Westworld.
Yes.
And sort of The Expanse put together.
Okay.
So that makes it feel not as original. And I'm getting kind of tired of seeing these amazing openings in all of these shows.
Yeah.
But the shows aren't as good as they should be. Like,
that's kind of like what you're saying, like how it feels like they just want to put the 3-body paint onto, like, their standard model of a show, It's like, yeah, we'll make a show about 3-body problem, but it's like they just turn everything into, like, a drama action thing. They don't really capture the spirit of the book, I feel like.
Right. So, these scientists are dying, and so my favorite character from the books, Cixin, Ta Shi, as he's known in the books, He's a cop in this one, Clarence Shee. He goes and sees one of these scientists who's been killed. And so this scientist was so the scientist was, presumably seeing all these numbers in his eyes. It freaked him out. And in his apartment building, it written in blood is like the countdown, which I'm like,
but like
sure.
A lot. Like
sure,
a lot.
Okay,
though.
fine, I guess. But then, in like a big, on a big section of the wall, he just wrote, "I still see it," in his blood. Who's that for?
Yeah.
Who are you writing that for? Like, it makes just no sense. You're writing that for the audience.
Yeah,
like, that's fourth wall breaking.
And also,
immediately.
It looks so stupid.
Yeah.
It's like a comical amount of blood. You're like, he used his entire blood volume, and then the I still see it or whatever is like in size like 1 million font.
Like, to use his entire palm to do it.
It's like he used a brush.
Really? And there's no like fade away, right? Like, you could see the entire thing. It's all.
Yes, it's
so.
It's very stupid.
It's so
very
heavy-handed, and it just immediately starts off with not realistic. Okay, here's like a big overarching complaint I have of the show.
Okay.
It just doesn't feel real, and I think there are a lot of things that contribute to this. One, the scientific grounding. How realistic it is, I don't really care. But whatever was apparent in the books, like, less of it is present in the show. That's number one. Number two, this feels kind of like X-Men or something. You know how maybe if a group of people go through something together, like they're involved in like an explosion that makes them all like radioactive or something, then the rest of the show or the story is focused on these 5 people and how, they interact with the world.
Yeah.
Well, in this one, all of our protagonists in this galactic issue, all of them can be seen at one pub near Oxford. Like, they're all PhD students in the same program.
Yeah.
And again, the book, you can say, hey, everybody's Chinese, yada, yada. But, the author wrote what he knew, and that's fine. Like, but in this one, and even more so than the book, there's so much like interconnectedness that it feels more like, the book, you can say, hey, everybody's Chinese, yada, yada. But, the author wrote what he knew, and that's fine. Like, and even more so than the book, there's so much like interconnectedness that it feels more like you're watching like a young adult show.
Yeah.
Where
you're
sort
right.
of like, I don't know, The Magicians or some Harry Potter thing where everybody's just sort of, this one gang of people is affecting the world.
Dude, yeah, you're right. Like, the structure of the show feels like it's adapted from like a YA novel or something.
Yeah.
Like Percy Jackson and the Physicists or whatever. Like, they're going to...
Percy Jackson, the Trisolaran Fleet.
Yeah, like, I don't know. They have like a clubhouse they hang out at, and it's like all 5 of them. They used to be all friends in college, I guess. I mean, in the book, there's like 1 or 2, right? Like,
characters?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, at any one time. Like, Wenjie.
Wenjie, Wang Miao.
I mean, she was mostly big, like, in the 70s. I mean, she's still in there.
Right.
But it's like, that was her time and her story. And then Wang Miao is like, he's mostly all of, like, the book, and then him and the cop.
Yeah, Shi Chang, yeah.
Makes more sense than like 5 dudes that all happen to live in the same apartment complex in Beijing or whatever,
I mean, this is maybe spoiler-ish, but look.
Spoiler for what? We're spoiling everything.
For the rest of the series.
Oh.
They put in a lot of stuff from book 2 and book 3 into this one. And I'll just say, like, in the future, in the other books, like, they brought in people from the other books, and they've kind of put them all together. And the way that they're making this show, it reminds me of of Game of Thrones, like in the very beginning, which sort of makes sense, right?
Okay. What do you mean?
But it doesn't work in this. In Game of Thrones, the first episode, you had like sort of multiple plot lines. And it works because, eventually it all kind of comes together. There's multiple seasons. And that show is about like character dynamics and character relationships. This show is not about that.
It
but
tries to be a little bit.
It tries to be. And I mean, it's hard to talk about it without spoiling stuff. But what they've done is sort of make it easier on themselves to film it and to tell the story. But by changing the structure to what they did, it removes a lot of mystery and tension.
Yeah, dude. Okay, so talk about the characters. Like, all of our main characters, like the 5 college bros or friends from college or whatever.
The science gang.
The science gang, yeah. Like, I find them all pretty unlikable, except for Jin.
Yes.
So the characters, they're unlikable. Like, they're like they feel kind of like incompetent, or like they don't care. What are the 3 like things? It's like, if you're competent, you move the story along,
and you're likable.
Mm-hmm. I find them to not move the story along, to not be competent, and to not really be likable, most of them.
Sort of, yeah.
Okay, so like Augustina,
Sure. Augie.
she's
Wang Miao.
Wang Miao. No, Wang Miao is like kind of an amalgamation of like
sort of. No, she is Wang Miao.
Yeah, because she's the nanowire
But they
person.
gave some of Wang Miao's actions to other characters.
But I find her like very annoying because like she doesn't do anything. She happens to own this nanowire company. Okay, she really doesn't like do almost anything for most of it until like we get to the ship part. But they just use her wire, and then she complains about it.
Right.
I'm like, hey, can we use your wire to do this thing? Okay. They're doing the thing. Oh my God, why? You can't do that thing.
Right.
And then the thing that drives me crazy, and this happens so much, especially with her, is that like the world is ending. The world is ending, aliens are coming, and like she's so upset about like this guy. There's an innocent guy on that boat who's gonna die. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Well, okay, to be fair.
Look, I know, but like, then don't agree to it in the first place. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let them take over your stuff, and then you can, sort of be angry about it.
Like, what do you want? Like,
okay, look, 2 or 3 things here, okay? One, Wang Miao was the main character in the first book, and you didn't have a lot of these other characters, and he was the one going forward, risking his life, trying to figure out what this mystery was with this 3-body game and why these people were dying, right? So Wang Miao, Xi Chang, moving things forward in the book, likable, well, competent, pushing things forward at least, and then Xi Chang was likable. Okay, in this one, Augustina, right, like you're saying, she doesn't really do too much, but sidebar. So episode 5, which is kind of where the first book ends, this nanowire cuts through this boat, and a lot of people die, including kids.
Yes.
There weren't really kids in the book.
No.
And it's kind of a weird tone because, like we're saying, this does feel in many ways like a young adult novel or a young adult show. But then you show that... Like, you make it more brutal than the book?
Well, it's
like,
not
it's sort
like,
of weird to me that, like, why do you do it?
They were trying to amp up they were trying to make it more, like, morally ambiguous. Like, morally gray. Because it's like, we need to do this to save humanity, but, like, kids are going to die. It's kind of, they didn't know kids were on there, so it's kind of like pulling your punch a little bit morally, because they didn't know. It'd be one thing if they did know and they had to, like, struggle with it, but they just learned afterwards. Obviously bad, but we don't see that, like, oh, but we have to do it anyway. No, it's not worth it or whatever. I don't know.
Right. And then number 2 about that, just to talk about this, Mike Evans is a billionaire who's now helping the aliens come and invade the Earth. He has, billions of dollars. He's funding all these activities on Earth. He has a server with alien communication on this ship, and the entire reason for them using this like nanotube wire to cut through the ship is to take over the ship without Mike Evans being alerted to the fact that there's somebody trying to get his stuff. Because if he knows that there's an attack coming, he can destroy all the communication with the aliens. But because there has to be all this action and carnage and everything, it's like a 5-minute thing where you see Mike Evans know what's happening.
Yeah.
He's just constantly running, and he has all the time in the world to like destroy all the hard drives and everything.
Yeah, like they don't
completely
know.
By the way, defeating the point of using the wire in the first
yes.
place, in which you could just send like a SWAT team, do it faster, and then like there would be no other casualties.
Yeah,
like it makes it look incompetent.
It makes
like
it look
they
dumb,
killed all these people for no reason because they don't even like lay out why they're doing this.
It's almost like a cliche to say this about a show adaptation of a book, but like, yeah, a lot of it is dumbed down for dramatic purposes. But it's like, it's a stupid way. Like it takes you out of it, I guess.
Yeah.
Because like the whole point, okay, like in the book, it's like, hey, we have a really hard problem to solve. It's like, we need to get this thing off the server. It's super important. The only way to get it is this. And we can't give them any heads up to like delete the hard drive or destroy it or whatever. We can't blow it up because it might destroy the hard drive. We can't send guys in there because they'll have time to delete the stuff. We can't like put poison gas on there because it's a boat and it's got like vents and stuff. Like there's all these things. And so they come up with this very ingenious idea set up earlier. And in the book, they go like you would, maybe. They go through and like it's almost like nothing happened. So like no one noticed anything. And then all of a sudden, like, the whole thing falls apart. Yeah. So much cooler. This is like hitting an iceberg. You know what I mean?
Sort of, with how they
like
show
the whole thing
inside.
starts falling apart, like, in front of them. They have ample time. The whole point.
Right, that part,
They
yes,
have ample time to get rid of whatever they need to do, you know? Like, he could have just taken a lighter and just, like, burned this hard drive. He had plenty of time.
Right.
Actually, I think he tried to, right? So I found her annoying. Augustine, because of that. And then like afterwards, she won't work on this project to save humanity because she's upset about this. Mm-hmm. Like I'm gonna take my ball and go home. Like this thing happened, I don't like it. So like it paints her in the picture or in the light that she's doing a good thing. But I'm like, it's really not doing a good thing, right? To like abandon humanity, to go drop iodine tablets in a well. And
right. It's like, hey, now with this, your children can grow up and they'll have clean water and they can lead a great, happy, healthy life. And then their kids can, oh, right.
Yeah. It just seems like it's injected drama for the sake of drama. And then what's the guy's name?
Shi-Chang?
No.
Oh, Saul?
Is that really his name?
It's Saul.
Okay, whatever. Like, I kind of forgot that he was even around. Like, he's just getting high all the time and, like, kind of doesn't care about anything. And the other thing is, like, why are these people our characters? Like, why are they our main focus? It's not like these are the greatest physicists that Earth has assembled. It's like, she invented a cool nanowire. Jin seems to be smart at physics, but everyone else is kind of like, well, this guy is a loser. He's sad. This guy owns like Nestle Dorito division and that's his whole thing. Who cares? And then Saul is like, he's like a grad student and he doesn't care about anything either. It's like, why are these our people? And then, oh my God, like I almost blew my my freaking aneurysm when they made him the wall facer.
Okay, yeah, man. Oh, wait, look. In the books, this shouldn't come as a surprise, or this shouldn't really matter. But these characters don't all know each other.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Like that's really it.
Like, why do they have to know each other?
Because it makes it
their interpersonal drama sucks. Also,
right?
Like that's what I mean. Like, again, not to rag on her constantly, but August, like she's just mad about everything for no reason. Like she's mad at Saul. Mm-hmm. She's like, you were out partying when I was sad, and I called you, didn't answer. Even though we're not together.
It's because they wanted to put all these characters in there, and they needed them, I guess, to all do something. So then they detracted from the main character from the book by just giving the important things out to other
they
people.
They interjected a lot of interpersonal drama, which was not necessary.
Right. I mean, I will say from the books. Okay, so books, if I had to nitpick, I would say that the characters don't really have arcs exactly. It's more like the characters, they have characteristics and they're just slowly revealed throughout the books. And so that's kind of how that's kind of the interesting thing about them.
Yes, that's fine. I mean, when your character is like a 43-year-old established physicist dealing with some weirdo stuff, like I don't find that I need him to have a character arc necessarily. You know what I mean?
And I'm okay with that as well.
It's more like you're on his team and he's trying to figure this out.
Yes.
And you're rooting for him to figure it out,
Yes. I mean, it's much more believable when Clarence Shee, the cop, goes through, his actions and does what he does, because you're like, oh, I get it. Like he has a kid, he's probably seen some things. But then when these like people our age or younger, I guess actually our age, I can judge them a lot more harshly because I'm their same age, basically.
Dude, when they made him the wall facer, it was so funny. I mean, you pull this up, they're like, this guy is a Chinese general, this person's a war hero, and then this guy has studied with some of the greatest minds at Oxford.
All right, it's like, why don't you look at those greatest minds?
Why don't you pick one of the greatest minds at Oxford then? Instead of the guy that was like around several. He's like, this guy was around some of the greatest minds in one place, and he doesn't seem to know or care about anything.
And it is explained like why he was chosen, which is fine.
A little bit, but it kind of feels like they picked anybody.
That reason in the context of the show makes it even more like, what a coincidence.
And again, like it's so frustrating that like our characters, a lot of them don't seem to care or want to do anything. He doesn't care. Like he doesn't want to do anything. I'm like, well then get out of the show and let someone else do it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
There's plenty of people that don't want to do anything and they're not in the show.
I mean, you're how far in the second book?
Like 50 pages or 80
pages. The guy in the book, the second book, is a little more likable. There's some stupid stuff that happens in the second book as well, but I wish we had more likable characters. It seems like people are sort of acting against their nature by doing some of the things that they do. Like these should be like hyper-rational people, and I don't feel like they ever really even focus on, hey, there's aliens coming. Like, how do we feel about that? They kind of talk around it, but
I'm ordering a pizza.
And talk about the second episode. So we could talk about the 3-body virtual game.
Oh, okay.
So this book came out in 2008. 2008 was...
That was very apparent when it said, oh my God, I have to go to www.3body.net.
And Facebook was out, I guess, back then.
2008? Like, barely, though.
Barely. Facebook was still popular among people under 50. So that was 2008, right?
Sidebar. It seems like Facebook, it was for college only. Then it was popular with young people. And then young people just vacated it and it became like a retirement home of the internet. It's weird, right? Like my dad doesn't own a computer, but he has Facebook.
Yeah.
And he uses it to find boomer memes that he shares with me. Not on the internet, but in person. He shows it to me.
That's how you know it won't get intercepted by the enemy.
Yeah, that's true. Unless I am the enemy.
Oh, no. I got to warn your dad.
Kevin, I know you don't know me or like me, but...
Or know me. I should stress that. Okay, look. So this alien fleet is coming towards Earth, and they want sympathizers to help them conquer Earth more easily. And so one of the ways that they do this is they create this virtual reality game called 3Body. And for 2008, it's actually kind of I don't know, I think maybe like a little ahead of its time. But they have sort of this VR technology, which has like haptic feedback and all this stuff. And our main character, Wang Miao, starts playing it. And I personally really sort of like those scenes in the book where he basically, goes and learns about this virtual world where these people are sort of forced to dehydrate themselves to survive because they can't really predict when it's going to be blazing hot or super cold or how long the days are going to last. You have these sort of interesting hypotheses by other characters on like how to predict when the sun is going to rise, I guess, and how long the days will be. So those interactions I really liked in the virtual world. There were so many cool things about it too. I loved the theories that they came up with. There was like a sphere within a sphere. The best one was when they basically made like a computer with people.
It's kind of like poking fun at these like old scientists, Like they thought they were so right about this and they were so wrong. Like, and they're so confident and arrogant about it.
Yeah.
And then also like, making like a huge computer out of like
this was
30
so
million
cool.
people.
They took 30 million. They took 30 million people. They explained kind of sort of how a computer works, and then they described it a little bit, right? Where they were like, "Hey, you're gonna do this."
Dude,
or
it was so funny. It's like the third light cavalry is like the memory bus or whatever.
Yeah, and it
Like,
was
like
so awesome, and
it had a display. Like it went to like a computer, like a screen made out of people.
it was so cool, like how they described it.
It's like running Qing 1.0 or whatever.
And so and
Emperor Qin or whatever.
Yeah, it was like Qin 1.0
Yeah,
or whatever.
And then like remember there was like it like locked up and he had that like
gosh.
he had that like memory nodule executed or whatever.
Oh my gosh. Maybe it's because we watched that little, I think it was like PBS, like
100%
computer module thing that shows how computers, transistors work. Yeah. But it was awesome. It was awesome to see that. And it wasn't like, basically they had like three people standing in a triangle formation and said, hey, if this happens and this happens, you do this. And you kind of understood the logic of it.
It was like two inputs of a guy with like the flags go into one guy, and he
depending
computes
on
that input.
Yeah, depending on if it was like, hey, if they're both white,
then you
do white. Or if you're this type of circuit, you do this. And it was so cool. And one time they had it to where one of the circuits like malfunctioned, and these circuits are made of people in this case, and they just executed.
Yeah, they just executed them.
It was nuts. And in the show, it's like they spent a fair amount of time in the show on this scene. They explained it as a similar thing. It's a computer. Why don't you go like the extra mile?
No.
Use the same
extra foot.
The extra like
okay, so
4 inches.
Just to get right to it, instead of having that, they just had a group of people just flapping like flags like randomly, essentially. Like it was just like a group of people with no real organization, just in a big block, just like doing this.
I mean, they made it look kind of, I guess, transistory.
Like when you look from like afar,
right?
But like it's very clear that they are not doing anything.
Yeah, and it's so depressing because
why not just have a scene, 15 seconds that says, "Hey, this guy knows that he reads these two flags and he makes his color like white or black depending on what he sees." And then we've done that a million times. That's it. That's all you got to do.
And that's how you make the show
like way better.
Yeah, and that's how you actually like show the scale of something. That's how you show how something's amazing. If you're painting a mountain, yes, I can draw a triangle, but that triangle has no scale until I start adding details. And you can see in relation to other things, like that's a big mountain, And it's frustrating because like 1999, The Matrix, they had to like sort of dumb down their concept for the humans, right? The machines had the humans being used as batteries instead of being used as processors.
Oh.
Because it was easier, I guess, for everybody to understand.
Dude,
this is 25 years later. People understand what a computer is.
But it's like, it's so frustratingly dumb because it's like, just do this one little thing and it's fixed. It's better. The other thing, again, with my point, is like how they just kind of, instead of using the actual show or like the plot of the actual what's going on to make the drama, they like manufacture it. Mm-hmm. It's like the whole part of the three body problem when they're in there, it's that kid that is like the focal point. Like she's trying to save this kid. Mm-hmm. Like why? One, it's not real. Two, they're reborn constantly.
It's a video game, basically.
It's like the world is ending. Like literally the world is melting. And she's like, save me, no. And she's like only focused on this kid. I'm like, did they think people were too dumb to like, you know what I mean?
Well, I guess maybe the way they presented it.
I understand like you take a big concept and you like kind of crystallize that into a character. Makes it easier to like understand. But like this is like the world is ending. And then instead of looking at it, you just kind of look over here at this one little kid. The important stuff kind of gets lost in the shuffle of other nonsense sometimes. Mm-hmm. Like you're saying, like they just focus on the wrong thing, or maybe they just focus on everything. Like it doesn't get the point across. I remember, I think it's the second episode where they go to that three-body virtual reality world. If you hadn't read the book, like I'm not sure you would understand even what the problem is. Like the chaotic eras and the stable eras, and they can't predict when there's going to be like a 40-year winter or not. Like you see the stars day and night happening fast, but also you can skip time, and that's also what it looks like. Mm-hmm. And they don't really explain. They kind of go over it real quick. I'm not sure if people would really understand what the real problem is, and it's called the three body problem. You know, like I'm not sure that would come across if you hadn't read the book. I think you might just think, oh, like their planet sucks. You know.
And look, we're not writers or anything. I would love to sit in on somebody making the screenplay or writing this, and I want to know what the process is. Like, how is it chosen? Like, this is how we're going to tell the story. Like, how does this end up happening? Like,
I'm worried that they would have like a lot of pressures to like you write a good story and they're like, hey, you really got to punch up this angle because.
But I feel like you could have everything. It doesn't seem like
you could definitely make it better, but the forces that make it stupid, I mean, it's probably like that. Like, hey, you got to rewrite this because we think people will be bored here. So put some fire in there. But you're like, yeah, but that actually detracts. They're like, shut up, nerd. Put some fire on there. And that's how it gets worse, you know?
Yeah, you're probably right.
I mean, like, how else could it get worse? I mean, I don't think a group of competent, well, I don't know, actually sat down and, like, said that this was the best way to do it.
Sometimes I wonder, because you see these quotes from people who make these video game adaptations, and, you know, maybe some of them are taken out of context or whatever, but, you know, they basically say, like, we don't care about the video game story. We're going to tell it our way. Like
I feel,
is it arrogance? Is it, like...
I don't understand that at all. The thing is, like, it doesn't even work. They're bad. And people don't like those shows and don't watch them. Yeah. So it's not like with these big, stupid movies, like, well, they still make their money. Maybe they do on the streaming shows. I don't know. But it's like they're universally regarded as bad.
Yeah, like you should be able to say, hey, this is a famous IP. That means if we make a good show, we know it's going to work, and like, we can do this for 8 seasons. Yeah, but instead it's like, hey, this is a famous IP, so let's make some money.
The feeling I get is that, like, they wanted this to have mass appeal, and they thought the audience was dumb. Dude, I don't know if you remember this, but I don't know what her name is. The one that carries out all her...
Tatiana. They had it on the...
Oh, was that her? Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. Well, when she's meeting like, in that graveyard, she creepily walks up to him and like talks to him and has this whole thing about like, oh yeah, this is my dad's grave and he died. And so she leaves, and it's supposed to be creepy because like, oh, like she's just pretending she's following this guy.
Yeah, she's following this guy. She told a story about her dad dying,
which is fake.
Right.
Which you basically get just by having eyes and looking at what's happening, you know, like, but then to make super duper sure, you know, that like she was lying, they cut to the grave that she was standing next to, which she said was her dad. And so they're like, okay, we got to make sure the audience knows that she was lying. So we got to make sure they know that wasn't her dad's grave. So here's what we do. We'll put a woman's name on it because he's a dude. Then we'll put it's like 1905 to 1909. Very easy math to do because there's a 05 and a 09. It's not like 19 and 27. Easy math, 5 years old. Oh, so it's a kid. Her dad's not a kid.
Right.
And then what was the last part? There was 3 parts.
Blessed or he or she mains. Or...
Oh, right. Yeah. It was like here she lies. It's like, oh, it's a girl again. It's definitely not her dad. It's like 3. It's like, come on, dude.
Right. You know, what this show is supposed to do, after I finished all 3 books, I was filled with like this existential dread for like days. This
Yeah.
show, what it should do is make you ask bigger questions. But
the beginning part, like the first book part, which is like 1 through 5, the beginning it felt very rushed, and then it kind of just felt kind of aimless, and I was kind of, it was very much a slog, you know? I'm like, I don't.
it's like maybe they wanted to get to the other next parts and they just rushed through this.
I felt like it got much better
It
when
did
they
get
got
better.
to the second book stuff, like episode 5 or 6. I think it got much better because they split up these characters for one. Like they're not all together in this house. Sometimes they are, but and then also it's like we have a discrete problem we want to solve. We're gonna bring these people together and see if we can be smart and solve it and explore how to do that.
Well, some of the characters die off, whatever happens. So you have less characters, you have more focus on them, and then, like you're saying, yeah, there's singular problems to solve, and it slows down quite a bit.
Like the Rooney guy, the snack pack, snack-a-lack guy that owns the company, he's gone, so that's good. It's one less person. The guy dying of cancer.
Dies of cancer. Well, doesn't die of cancer.
He was just like until that point he's just kind of like, but like he's like for like 5 hours. You know what I mean? It's like kind of one note because he didn't have anything to do until that point.
Dude, so I can't really talk about. Oh, okay, look, in the books, that character is a lot more miserable.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more surrounding him that makes him a little more. That makes all of his stuff a little more interesting.
He has to be an Oxford graduate student, though.
Right. That's the Every character has to fit into the mold of Oxford PhD
And then
physics student.
Saul is gone, which is an improvement until the end, which just made me upset. But and then Jin has like a thing to do, and she's using her skills to do it.
So that's the best thing is people.
Yeah, it's like okay,
people working hard competently.
constraints, problems, figuring it out. And then Augustine is gone, also a plus.
Yes, they just slowed it down. I think they
And
just wanted
she
to.
and his boss. I don't know the guy's name. With the beard.
Wade,
Yeah.
Thomas Wade, I believe.
I mean, those are like much more entertaining or like likable characters. Because even if you don't agree with him, it's like, yeah, he's like, you know what I mean? He's like, hey, like, I don't care. I got a job to do. It's the most important job literally ever.
Yeah.
Just screw off. Like, you know, like we're going to do it. I don't care.
Yeah, they act like real-ish people. So the TV show, right? It's 5 episodes. Are basically the first book, and then 6, 7, 8, they mix the second, third book in there as well. Like you're saying, it gets better definitely after episode 5, in my opinion.
Do you feel like they ended it at like the right point? Because the
No.
weird thing is they didn't end it where the first book ends, which I feel like was an appropriate ending. So by randomly deciding to like, they kind of took it out a little bit into the beginning of the next book, but it didn't feel like it was a supernatural endpoint more than like the ending of the book. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's like they extended it out, but by doing that, they kind of crunched in the first book stuff in just 5 episodes. And so it's like kind of rushed and it makes it worse. But for what reason, you know?
I'm not sure. They said they wanted max like 3 or 4 seasons, which...
Is it to fit the whole thing into that? I don't know. I haven't read the second and third book.
The scope obviously gets bigger, the second and third books, but you have it all in front of you. You can read all of the books. I read all the books in a few days. And if this is like what you're doing, I think it should be easy to kind of create the scaffolding and sort of space it out. It's like you're writing in bubble letters, or you're writing like in big letters on cardboard piece of paper, and you're sort of just running out of room at the end. Their pacing is just like completely off, it feels.
Yeah, it's way off.
There's a lot that happens in the second and third books. There's definitely more to explore there. That's fine, but it's still no excuse for starting off so poorly, because you're just gonna like lose audience.
Yeah, like if I didn't have to do this for homework or whatever, like, oh, no way, man. Like I would have stopped after like the first few for sure.
Book's just better. I mean,
And also, I'm not super thrilled that we went the whole way either. It wasn't like, yeah, but it was worth it. It's like, it was all right.
It was
like,
all right.
like,
And
it was
also,
yeah.
you could, the Netflix show is probably 8 hours or something? You could basically read the book in that time. I'd rather read the book.
Yeah, you could almost read the book in that time.
Okay, I'm going to bring up other stuff I didn't like.
All right.
All right, look. In the book, the aliens communicate with Mike Evans.
Yeah.
So you have probably not Hall of Fame wide receiver Mike Evans talking to the Trisolarans, and he learns during one of these conversations that they don't understand like deception
man,
and deceit. Like, okay, I tell you, hey, that's a cool shirt. I really like it. And then you think I'm telling the truth, but I'm not.
You're not?
And so the aliens don't understand this concept because for them, like whenever they look at somebody and like communicate at all, like all their thoughts are like instantly transmitted. Like they can't hold anything back. And so they're like, we don't understand. You use this word thought and say, but aren't they the same thing? And he has to explain to them, oh my God, you guys don't know any of like this deceptive world. You guys really need our help. And they're like, ooh, we really do need help. Oh my goodness. In this show, they dumb that down. This is unforgivable. They dumbed that down to, hey, in this Red Riding Hood book, why does she not know that the wolf's there and leave? And he's like, oh, the wolf lied. And they're like, do you lie? And he's like, well, sometimes. And they're like, we're scared. You lie? And then they cut off contact with him. Like they say, what, a liar cannot be trusted? Like they are lying themselves. They are 1,000,000% lying themselves. Like
Yeah.
this is so stupid. This is so unbelievably stupid that like their entire reason for like abandoning this guy is like he's lying.
I don't know.
It makes it so absolutely dumb.
Yeah, I felt pretty dumb.
And okay, here's the problem that it solves, right? The problem that it solves is, well, maybe if the Trisolarans can see everything that the Earthlings are doing, why did they let this guy die from the nanotube stuff? And it's a little tricky to explain, but it is explained in the book. So maybe it solves that problem, but it's still so unbelievably stupid because, like, they're lying. They are obviously lying. They are employing lyment.
As a short aside, do you think it's feasible that like a civilization would exist that way?
I think it's possible.
But like evolutionarily, I guess, like the ability to conceal your thoughts is so strong. I would have to imagine that like
it depends on the pressures. I mean, you can imagine if maybe
But
a
dude, like-
fungus was growing over the world and the fungus just had to survive.
yeah,
And it became like smarter and smarter. It's like a hive mind.
Yeah.
Where it's not like maybe fighting against other animals, but maybe against, or maybe it is other animals.
maybe they're like really all like together,
Right, like
more
maybe
like an
it's-
ant colony or something.
Right, like maybe the
Okay, maybe
for the fungi, like it's
All right.
it's like the moon's gravity that they're fighting, so they all have to work together. Like there's possibilities, just
I
different
get it.
pressures.
But they'd obviously be much less individualistic.
Sure.
I mean,
and
if
that-
you're constantly seeing everybody's thoughts,
yeah,
like
yeah,
you,
yeah, it's like a hive mind, yeah.
look at these thoughts we're having because of the book, but like not the show. That's what I mean. Like
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
thought provoking. Also, that took forever. I don't know if you remember, but like that whole conversation explaining the stupid Red Riding Hood story, it took forever. Like he just kept being like but you don't, and they're like, like you don't know what it is, and like, like, but she was hiding. They're like, what's that? But like forever. I'm like, yeah, we get it.
I guess what we've said basically is they just dumb down all these concepts. They like blunt it a little bit to where you can't really.
It feels like you take the book and you run it through like a AI filter of 16-year-old, like a teenager, like in high school. Like if you took the book and like it said, hey, what if it was written by like me in high school? This is kind of what comes out. It's like, hey, there's like these 5 friends. They're together. They have this cool beach house, and like they're gonna save the world. And like the numbers come up, and they're like crazy scary, man. They're like, whoa, like what's gonna happen? And then like the countdown gets to like 0. Not like that's like again a microcosm. It's like the countdown. It's like extra scary because it gets to like 1. It's like it's just as scary the fact that it exists at all in your vision. Counting down to anything. It's like insanely scary. Also, I can't believe we didn't talk about the universe blinking thing. What is
Right.
that about? Like in the book, it's like subtle. It's like just for you, but it's also incredibly insane what happens. Like the cosmic background radiation changes, right? That's insane. But in
He has to wear these special glasses. He looks up at the sky and it kind of blinks, but only with these special goggles. So either this or like special instruments can detect it, but you can't just look up and it's like somebody's flicking a light switch.
But like, again, it's like dumbed down because they didn't think people would understand what that is, even if they could just take like 5 seconds to explain it. But like what happens in the show is like the whole universe like blinks out of existence a lot.
Right, which, you know what, it can do. Like, they have the technology to do it. I'm not saying they couldn't do it, but the societal
It
implications
would
of
freak
that
out the entire planet.
are like immediate looting of everything in existence.
Like what they show happening at the start of episode 6 is what would have happened right then.
Right. That's like instant riots.
Because it's not like, oh, this guy had like a Bigfoot photo of it happening. It's like everybody everywhere, including all the scientists and telescopes, saw and recorded what happened.
Yes.
Also, you remember like he was counting out the Morse code? Also, I like how he doesn't care about anything. He's like, well, let me look at this Cracker Jack thing. And he's like counting out like the countdown.
Oh, yes.
But then he just like says the numbers, but like, and then he goes like 5, 4, 3. Like he knows when it gets to the last digit.
Like the Morse, yes.
You know what I mean?
It's not even.
It doesn't make any sense. He's like, how did he know that that's when it stopped in her brain? Whatever.
Dude, it's like somebody took the book and they said, okay, I can't read this book. Why don't you think of one word for each page? And it's like bad, sad, aliens, scary, lie. And that's how they sort of just made the show.
Yeah. Like, we're ragging on this show pretty hard because it sucks. But, like, I wanted to like it.
I wanted to love it.
I was, like, cautiously optimistic.
Me too.
But, like, just immediately, it's just like, well, the characters are unlikable. Things are dumbed down. The cinematography is kind of bad. Like, not
great.
Like,
yeah.
Like, uninspiring. That sounds like the most pretentious thing to say ever.
So maybe,
but what I mean is,
like with the CGI, especially, like, there's so many CGI things. You can put the camera anywhere. I feel like I'm also not a director of photography, but the shot selection just wasn't great. Like, you're dealing with such awesome things. Like, this isn't really much of a complaint. I get it. They have sophons, right? Basically, the Trisolarans sent these 2 protons to Earth to mess with particle physics experiments. And so these protons are actually supercomputers. And the way that they made, I don't know how, I'm assuming isn't very realistic, any of this, but whatever, I don't care. It's cool. These protons, the way that they made them supercomputers is they like etched circuits onto the protons, but to do that, they unfolded them into like, 2D
11
space?
dimensions or something.
Yeah, into like, I think 2D space. Initially, they messed up and they made them 1 dimensions, and it just became like string, and they're oh, whatever, this is fine, it'll go away. We got to try again. They tried it again in the book, and they unfolded it into 3 dimensions. And I think they like unfurled a world.
Yeah, well, they can use this to make it a huge thing compressed into a proton size, and also they take like the energy for operation out of other dimensions or something, so it doesn't break the law of conservation of energy, because a proton is like doing all this stuff. But they're saying like, so they're like saying in the book like, hey, aren't there other? You're telling me there's other higher dimensions? Like, might there be other stuff there? And they're like, yeah, probably. And they're like, there's like lower dimensions. Could there be stuff in there? And they're like, yeah, probably. And then like a civilization like unfolds out of when they unfold the proton and like tries to kill them.
That was one of the coolest things. It's like, okay, so they've unfolded, I think, in 3 dimensions, and then all of a sudden there's like these eyes in the sky, and the Trisolarans get freaked out. Like, whatever, like the string, it'll also go away. And the eyes start like converging or something. And then slowly they just start like, they start focusing light onto the Trisolaran like capital, like, with like a magnifying glass. Yeah. And then Trisolaran's like, what? Launch the nukes. Like, just launch the nukes. Very like matter of fact.
Yeah, it's
and then the 3D proton thing gets destroyed, and like, did we just destroy an entire dimension?
They're like, was a whole universe in there? Like, do we destroy an entire civilization? I'm like, yeah. Probably every time a neutron decays, a whole universe is gone.
It was awesome, and it's like those sorts of peaks, I guess, are just flattened. And so the show doesn't have like the range of awesome that it should have.
Those are like scientific peaks, right? Like science fiction peaks, right? I feel like they try to replace those with like personal drama, stakes, feelings peaks, which sucks. That's what I mean by like they take your 3-body problem paint and they paint the same old car with that.
At the end of it, that's the biggest problem that I think we have with the show, is that it doesn't live up to the promise of what a show based on the 3-body problem should be. So China made an adaptation of the book as well. It's 30 episodes, but they're shorter in length, but still probably around like double the length of the Netflix series. And they more or less followed the book pretty closely. And so we only watched the first episode, but it's so, I don't know, I feel like we were vindicated a little bit because immediately it's just more compelling.
Yeah.
Like, Da Shi Chang is awesome, just like I expected him to be in that show.
Like, he's got some charisma.
Yeah.
I mean, he does a little bit in the he's more than most, more than the other ones. When you adapt something, I don't I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, they got to make it exactly like the book and they can't change anything or whatever. I'm not like one of those people, but they didn't change anything and it worked out a lot better.
Right. There's tension, there's mystery, and you're following like one or two characters. And so, you have time to get invested in the story rather than trying to figure out who these people are and what their relationship is to each other.
Like a lot of those through lines, like character stuff in the Netflix show was like not that strong. Like him with his cancer and he's friends with like Jack Rooney and like he likes her but he never told her, and like Saul and Augie are like used to go out, or like none of that stuff really goes anywhere. None of it really gets resolved too much.
And I understand where they're coming from in the books.
I feel like they try to adapt it to like the wrong audience.
Yeah.
Like they try to like make this work. It's like, let's take this square peg and shove it in this round hole. It's like, just put it in this square hole. I'm surprised that the ratings are so high. They're not that high, but like I'm surprised they're as high as they are, because like I found it very
I think it's
boring and
I don't know, what does it call it? Not confirmation bias,
like
but
tedious. That's the best word for it.
I think it's probably a lot of people who read the books who just like seeing it on screen.
I figured the people that read the book would be more upset.
Yeah.
In some ways,
Or maybe the people didn't read the book and they think they're getting like everything out of the show.
Maybe.
Which that'd be sad because you're missing out so much. So
Imagine if they did Dune like this, where like Muad'Dib and like Chani with like and like Fade Rotha and like they're all like high school together and like the Baron's like the principal or something. Like that's what it would feel like. I don't know.
Amateurs. Oh, by the way, another thing. In the Chinese version, like China's a big place. That's 1/7 of the population.
No.
These characters, they come from all over China. And even then, you might say something like, hey, this is, an international problem. Where are all the international people? And the book does address this. There's, people from America, South America, all this stuff, right? Sure. Somehow the show has like an even narrower scope.
Yeah, that's what
like everybody is British. I think Augie's supposed to be like from America, but like, I don't care if like skin color, ethnicity, all this stuff. Everybody's from Britain. Like everybody is British. Like
everybody tackling this intergalactic. I mean, this world's problem, the world's biggest problem. All our friends from college.
Yeah,
they're all from like one zip code.
Yes.
They all live in the same zip code. You know what I mean?
And
the whole planet.
It's not at all. It just takes away from any realism for the show.
It makes it feel. Yeah, that's what kind of makes it feel more like a CW thing. Like,
I think. A reasonable comparison for this would be, I think, Invasion on Apple TV, which I've only seen like an episode or two of.
It's like his story is in Egypt. Her story is in like
Antarctica, and this guy's in Canada.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I didn't think about it at all. Like, I had no problem with all the characters being Chinese. One, it's a Chinese book, and I feel like if it was an American book, no one would even think the fact that like all the people are American.
Right.
Maybe, I don't know. But you have international people in there too. But it's a Chinese book. It's fine.
Yeah,
makes sense to me. China's a big place, like you said.
Yeah. But even then,
they do work with other people.
Yeah, they include the UN a lot, and then they include like other places. So
like the hard part's already done.
Yeah.
Like they came up with the concept and the story, and you already know it's successful because everybody likes it. So it's like, well, just mostly do that and like kind of change it up a little bit to make it fit that format.
Are they, maybe it's like a retention thing. Like it's not like you can make a show for 30-year-old guys or 20-year-old women or like 50-year-olds. It's like every show has to be for everybody. And maybe it's like the different streaming services have like different priorities. If like Westworld came out today, I mean, which it kind of did.
Maybe they're
like
they're
people
always
have the attention spans for it.
I think maybe the streaming services or whatever, they're always trying to hit a home run, like always, And like to hit a home run, like Westworld was popular with everybody. Like Game of Thrones is popular. It's some nerd stuff, but it's popular with everybody.
But they started off as like a slow burn, right? It was
That's
like
because they did it right and effectively.
But it was just straight up good. Like if you watch Game of Thrones or Westworld from episode 1, you're like, dude, this is good. And then word of mouth spread.
Executives and stuff haven't somehow across the world, people that are on like the admin side of this stuff haven't figured out that the underlying secret sauce is it's actually good. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, people like sci-fi. Oh, people like R-rated stuff, like with Deadpool.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's what they like. That's what we need. It's like, no, it's like, it's just good. People like good stuff.
Right. I mean, okay, look, to play devil's advocate, I guess, we don't know like the actual numbers behind some of this stuff. Like there's some like a lot of trash. Trash makes a lot of money. It makes a lot of money.
Yeah, but like Love is Blind kind of trash. Not like,
but it makes a lot of money.
Sure, but like not like crapping on Three Body Problem.
But they're competing in the same sphere.
Well, I know that's why it's important to make it good, not bad. You
No, we
already-
make it bad.
Like the bad stuff is cheap to make. You don't have to get an IP and like hire all these actors to make bad stuff. If you're gonna do that, make it good.
I'm with you. I'm just saying, like, I think there's just not the motivation to do this stuff right, and it's very sad. Anyways, on that note, I guess our pizza's almost here. So,
No, it's not.
oh God.